Good morning, Evan.
Morning, Danny. Great to see you, man.
Great to see you. Great to be seen. Great to be back on another episode of Monad in the Morning. We're in a temporary setting today. This is not season 2. This is not our full upgraded studio.
Yeah.
And we'll be back in the studio next week, but there's been a pretty big facelift going on behind the scenes.
Yep.
We've got a lot planned for next week. Today, we will not disappoint. We're going to have some fun. We've got a couple great guests coming on, and as always, lots to chat through. But just to give the esteemed viewers some context, something to look forward to next week. We're very back with season 2. This week, we're kind of back.
Yeah. It's kind of nice that we're like in this as I think someone in the chat said Monad in the corner. We're in our little corner booth today, keeping us pretty humble. Back to the roots, some might say.
Some
If you
might
guys
say.
recall the OG Danny Pipelines podcast in these little office spaces. But it's the perfect segue going into season 2 because it's just gonna be bigger and better.
Bigger, better, grander, more guests, more Monad, more Monad in the morning,
More Monad in the morning.
right? Can't hate that. Can't hate that. Who do we have today? In 21 minutes, we will be joined by Bungie Exchange. They recently launched a new product on Monad, incognito mode.
Yep.
Pretty cool. Excited to dive into that. I'm sure most of the viewers probably saw that announcement go live on Twitter over the past couple weeks, but lots to unpack there. And we will also have Wyatt joining at 11 a.m. Eastern. Wyatt works for Castle Island VC. He is a mentor for the Nitro program, which is making waves all over Twitter, all over crypto, honestly, and beyond. We haven't run this show in a couple of weeks. One, because we're in the process of doing the renovation for season 2, but also because there's been a lot going on. We were out at ETH Denver for quite a few events, both Monad events and collaborative events as well. And then last week we were getting organized back into the swing of things post Denver, renovating the studio as well. But when we were at Denver, everyone had heard of Nitro. Everyone was talking about Nitro. Like, even if they didn't really know much about Monad in general, they knew about Nitro, which is pretty cool.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I think now's and Wyatt will be the right person to ask these questions to. But in a market where most people are leaving crypto, generally pretty sad about prices, we always think that these are the best times to double down and deploy. And I mean, I don't know what your impression of Denver was this year. Obviously, the numbers speak for themselves in terms of attendance being low. Sure. To be honest, I think this was probably the best Denver I've been to in the past 3 or so years, because you get to a point in these markets where it's only serious people left. Like, I would say during a bull market, you'll get a lot of like random marketing agencies you've never heard of trying to sell you on some service. And here it's just builders. Everyone here is so committed to the cause and is like, hey, I was here long before all of the crazy stuff happened in crypto, and I'll be here long after. So the energy was really good. And I think that we're kind of seeing this vibe shift now where it's really a builder's market. That Nitro, the whole point of that is to give people fuel who are fighting on, who have traction, have revenue, and like maybe can survive themselves, but need that catalyst. That's what we're here to do right now.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. Like, all of crypto really until probably 2025. I think this is a pretty reasonable claim to make, but we'll see. Chat, let me know if you disagree. All of crypto until 2025, it was really like a hope, a whim, and a dream.
Yeah.
It was not like, oh, this thing is guaranteed to work. Like, in 2019, 2020, even like 2021 craziness, there was still like a dream that institutions, big TradFi
Yeah.
players, like everything was going to settle on blockchain rails, but like none of that had really happened yet.
Mhm.
And sure, the most recent bull market probably didn't play out in the way that a lot of people expected it to because everything was so nuts in 2021.
Mhm.
But it is quite interesting that like now more than ever, there's
Mhm.
more motion, more people using crypto,
Yep.
more institutions getting involved, more financial products that are crypto adjacent than ever before.
Yeah.
And crypto is now, it's still quite early
Mhm.
for the industry as a whole, but it's
Mhm.
not this like dream. It's not this like super early stage,
Mhm.
like this thing is going to happen, but we haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. Like the way I view it is before the exciting part of crypto is this expansion from there's like three guys in a room talking about a white paper and it's like, all right, we're gonna eat the world. And now it's okay, here are like serious companies and their expansion case is getting it to every institution in the world.
Yeah.
Like we're onboarding whatever, like NASDAQ, New York Stock Exchange. That's always been the dream. And now like that's happening, but it's less so of from the bottom to the top kind of thing. But it's like, hey, we're already we've already proved the legitimacy. That being said, I do think like what crypto is best for is anything can come out of crypto and it moves so quickly. You never know when that next thing is going to come out. So I think like to your point, stable coins, payments, FX, transfer rails, all of these things are going to see that 100x probably in that institution space. But I think what we're also excited for is there's still a lot of work on the ground of new consumer apps are going to play out. Like I think even things like trading use cases. We're now seeing like global equities, perps on everything that's slowly starting to eat the world. I think there's immense opportunity there. Prediction markets are in their early innings still. I would say like most people probably have heard of Polymarket and Kalshi, but they're doing everything they can to try to like get people to know it, win those culture wars. And I think as they 100x, there's going to be so many in their kind of shadows rising up with them that they're waiting for these things to get institutionalized. It's almost the fight we saw with DeFi and stablecoins, where now prediction markets are in kind of this crazy legal battle. Like states are trying to ban them, different countries are trying to ban them. They're fighting with this. The CFTC is on their side. If they can get institutionalized, I think they open up the door for a lot of things. So I think you're totally right. In some ways, like people are defeated because they're like, oh, we won. I think there's certainly still 100x in that space, and there are a lot of smart people that we've had on the podcast, like Mento 2 weeks ago, who's doing FX. That's an incredible opportunity, right? It might not sound so appealing for the average retail DGen, but I'm also sure that those opportunities are going to keep coming in pockets that maybe we don't even know about yet right now.
Yeah, and I think we heard, I believe it was when Denny was on
Mm,
from Mento. I think there were a bunch of people in the chat that were like, "Oh, this is actually like really
totally.
appealing to
Yeah.
me, like just as a financial
Yeah.
product, not as this like speculative vehicle." And
Mm,
that's pretty cool. And certainly it's very regional,
yep.
kind of, what the need is for like financial access and financial products. And that's another thing that it's hard to like pay attention to if a certain product is solving a pain point for a certain type of user and that's not you,
Yeah.
then inherently you're just not going to pay as much attention to it. I think the area where people have paid attention to things in the past that are not like directly solving a problem
Hmm.
for them is like when there's like clearly 1,000x
Yeah.
opportunity and it's
Yeah.
like,
Totally.
oh, this is going to, really solve a pain point for, you know, a certain region
Yeah.
or like a certain culture, a certain like group of people. And like, I can be early to this. But yeah, I mean, it is interesting that despite all that, we just have pretty pretty poor sentiment across the board. And then there's also like the cultural element
Mm,
too, where like memes and internet culture and like shit posting
mm,
on Twitter was like relatively niche back 5
mm.
years ago. And
Yeah.
like a lot of people participated in that, obviously.
Right.
Like
Right.
those were like the glory days of CT.
Mhm, mm.
But now like that culture has very much so spread beyond like
Yeah,
internet
totally.
natives and crypto itself. Like
Mhm,
yesterday the White House, and this is, like, not a one-off thing, but, like,
Mm,
yesterday, the White House posts this, like, meme compilation video of, like which starts with, like, a Call of Duty clip,
yeah.
sending in, like, a Predator missile or a nuke or something, and then they overlay, like, actual military
Dude, that's
strike
crazy.
footage, and it's just like, this is, like we are in the simulation, like,
Yeah, yeah,
very,
100%.
very clearly, like, this would not have happened 5 or 10 years ago,
Yeah.
but now, like, not only are wars being fought, like, with boots on the ground and drones and, like, all this crazy tech,
Mm,
but, like, also online with memes
yeah,
from, like, the White House or the Department of Homeland Security or, like, foreign accounts as well. It's like
yeah.
it's crazy.
100%. I mean, I think we've just seen like kind of a flattening in what media looks like. Because before there's all these gatekeepers, you go through your PR and your news orgs. I think post 2016 election, you lose a lot of trust in these institutions, but then also social media in general is just blowing up. And you can have one random, low number account on TikTok that their video blows up and do more for a brand than that brand spending millions of dollars on commercials. I think that's kind of the flattening we've seen. So now these brands also are just competing for attention against these TikTokers and these influencers. And I mean, part of like not to talk our own book, but like part of um, pipelines is about that. And I think part of season two is about, hey, like the point of this is that it should be just entertaining and valuable, regardless of your if you're in the Monad community, maybe even regardless of if you're in crypto, if you're just on the internet, this is like that's what we're competing for attention on, and that's the aim to make all of our channels so good that you just consume this as entertainment no matter where you are.
100%. Like, yeah, I mean, for season 2 of Monad in the Morning, like, we're gonna go broader and bigger on
Yeah.
guests. Like, it doesn't matter if you're in crypto, you're not in crypto, you're crypto adjacent. Like, if you are entertaining, you're interesting, you've got something cool or unique to talk about, some perspective to share, like, we'll be bringing bigger guests, more varied topics. We'll be talking about the current thing, the flavor of the day, as well as featuring all the awesome stuff that's going on in the Monad ecosystem. And I think this is actually going to become easier with time because the theme for Monad overall right now is like, yes, this is a very early stage chain, very early stage ecosystem, but we're compounding wins and compounding real growth and just continuing to experiment, quickly get shots on net and level up as fast as possible. And like I think, a lot of people in the community have picked up on this
Mm.
over the past couple weeks and months.
Yep.
Like the amount of stuff coming out of Monad Foundation is uh pretty significant. Like there's a
Mhm,
lot of
mhm, mhm.
velocity with Multiverse Hackathon and Nitro, and we've got, Foundry announced and upcoming. We've got,
Yeah.
a hackathon just spun up
Yeah.
here in
I
New
think
York
I think
over
we
the
have a
past
number of
weekend.
however many Monad blitzes that we've done. Some that
35
yeah,
plus in 9 months. Like
it's some absurd number.
that's
Yeah.
that actually, like, is so underrated.
Yeah.
Shout out Elton and the DevRel team that are
Gosh,
putting all
yeah.
those together and traveling all over the world and coordinating with different developer groups. Like,
Mhm.
the number of developers that have come in and built on Monad, some of which have never built in crypto before, is,
Totally.
like, it's over 2,000 people have come in, participated in a blitz, shipped something on Monad in a single day, and like that's real impact. And
Yeah.
that's going to continue to compound. Maybe we'll get to
100%.
5 or 10K over
Yeah.
the course of 2026, but like that's meaningful
Oh,
developer
yeah.
activity, and it's only going to continue to grow. We saw this at Denver. There
For
were
sure.
college kids from University of Kansas and Berkeley, not only like hacking but also like winning.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah,
i'm
yeah.
i'm super
Super sharp.
bullish on like the young crowd who's like
Mhm.
just getting into crypto, just getting into blockchain, thinking about totally new products
Yeah.
that have never been built before, both like on the
Oh, for sure.
consumer side, the
Yeah.
financial side, and
Yeah.
it's going to be fun.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, this, as you mentioned, this weekend in the studio here in New York, we had a privacy hackathon with Unlink, who basically built this privacy SDK. You have a few lines of code, you can make transactions private, wallets private, etc. I think we had around 40 teams hacked throughout the weekend, and honestly, some of the most impressive builders I've seen at a hackathon. We had people that were ex Uniswap, ex DYDX, ex Frax, and like legitimately for all like the top four winners, I think that each of them can actually like productize what they're doing and potentially get that venture back, which to be honest, I think in the past like 3 years, I haven't seen that at all in a hackathon. I think that's to like what that really means is those people that are still there that are like going out in a hackathon on a weekend. And I was asking them like, why are you guys here? And they're like, with AI now, you can just get so much done in a weekend that is genuinely so fun to just come out here and do that. I think that's the type of energy that's left in crypto right now. It's you have people who have super sharp backgrounds in crypto. Now that one person team can do 100x more with Claude Code and Codex, and you're just ripping through projects, and that's what where we're at.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be interesting. Like, there's kind of two ways that you can look at this. Like, you can buy into the crazy negative sentiment, just like you can buy into the crazy bullish sentiment around the top. Like
Yeah.
every single cycle, this happens, and like you can get, I think, distracted in a sense that it really becomes unproductive at a
Yeah.
certain point to be like, oh, there's like all these negative things going on right now. Like, AI has really overshadowed crypto in terms of attracting all this developer talent. Like, we had all this infrastructure that's not being used. And, it's easy to get caught in like that short term mindset, I think. But like, look around, it's clear that the
Yeah.
big financial institutions, the banks, the big players are coming into crypto.
Mhm.
And my fear, honestly, is that the people who were very early to crypto, like mid curve the new state of where crypto's at and where it's going, and effectively just get like shaken out of the industry and then look back in like 2 years and they were like, oh, I was so close,
Yeah.
but I gave up in the
Dude, it's
in the
the
fourth
meme
quarter.
of the guy with the pickaxe and the diamonds.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And like, does that mean WAGMI is real? No. Like, no, sorry.
Don't buy random shitters, guys.
Yeah, like
Like that's probably
it's actually more minus EV now than it
yeah.
ever was before. Like, that's not like, and that's effectively what
Mhm,
I
mhm.
mean. Like, people kind of like, that's how you played the game
Yep.
in 2021. In 2017, like, it was, there just wasn't that much stuff to
Mhm.
actually participate in. So you had a much higher percent chance of like hitting a winner. Now, like, your chance, if you don't have like, real alpha and really know what you're doing, your chance is like so low. You're competing against people that are,
Sure.
serious and, you know, paying attention.
Mhm.
And so like, it's just a product of the fact that the industry is evolving and there's
Mhm.
different ways to participate now. And yeah, I mean, it's going to continue to evolve and to change, but I think the people that have that conviction, that keep showing up every day, that stay experimenting, that stay building, that stay positive and
Mhm.
optimistic,
Yeah.
are going to outlast all of the negativity. And that's a good spot to ultimately be in, I think.
Yeah, yeah, and I think, like, again, it's a lot of the people that we talk to, maybe, like, random retail traders are kind of bearish right now, but when you talk to institutions, like, they're all extremely bullish. Yeah, these people are thinking on much longer price ranges, and you're talking to institutions, and they're like, "Yeah, we're looking to allocate. We don't own enough crypto. We're trying to buy more crypto." We're seeing that on the business development end internally as well. Like, I think part of the case for Monad, if you will, is also this extremely fast 10K TPS settlement chain that is now like out there in production, battle tested, even compared to, I know there's a bunch of new L1s coming up. Like we're here, we're in the arena right now. The code is live and it's open source. So you can actually see that what we're saying is all true. And we're seeing a ton of interest and demand from, for I guess all of you guys. Obviously, I can't say too much, but like they're all like household names in tech, fintech, and banking.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of demand to want to work with them. And we have an extremely stacked team, a bunch of new hires, as you guys know. Joe Anita, our head of institutions, Earth, our VP of go-to-market, Raj, obviously from the portal acquisition, our head of payments, Joey, our head of infra. Like these four people are championing so many deals right now, and I'm like very bullish on the fact that there's just so much BD in enterprise and institutional demand that will come to Monad as well. And like that, I guess, is not reflected in super short term, like headlines. And even obviously those deals, you win a deal now, like it'll take maybe a year for those things to get implemented. But what we're seeing is a ton of optimism on people on the institutional enterprise and fintech tradfi side.
Yeah. I mean, I I'll paraphrase basically what I heard Keone say in a meeting, but I am paraphrasing. So this should come back to me, not Keone. But he was basically saying like there is a risk in like overthinking the negativity in the
Yeah.
space right now and
Yeah.
effectively like mid-curving Monad and thinking like, oh, crypto's not in the greatest spot. Like,
Right.
there's a ton of block space across the
Yeah.
industry. There's a million EVM chains, many of which are not really being used. Like,
Mm,
Monad is early. The volume, the TVL is not yet like extremely competitive with top players in the space. And it's easy to look at that and then turn around and be like, okay, well, maybe Monad is not all it was cracked up to be. Like
mm,
maybe, Monad is going to face similar problems that a lot of EVM chains have faced historically. And like effectively it comes back to what is different about Monad. And the the fact remains very true that Monad is highly dissimilar to a lot of these other
mm.
EVM chains.
Yep.
Like it is a highly performant and globally decentralized rebuild
Mm.
of the entire EVM stack. And every layer on Monad has been rebuilt from scratch
100%.
for performance
Yeah.
and decentralization to
Mm,
scale hand in hand. And it is effectively where Ethereum is going over the next 5 years. But look at Keone's recent tweet. It ends with a lot of these problems have already been solved. And
yeah.
that's 100% true. And so to look at that and say like, okay, let's look at Monad as we would look at a
Mhm,
fork of, another EVM chain, an L2 and L1 that's run on bare metal and, there's no credible path to decentralization is just
mm,
so wrong. And like that's ultimately I think the trap that people can fall into
mm,
mid curving Monad. And on the other hand it's like, hey, from a tech perspective, Monad really is like open source, highly
mm.
performant, decentralized,
Yep.
backwards EVM compatible. There's all this activity going on the developer side with Monad Blitzes, with hackathons popping up. There's initiatives like Nitro and Foundry to support early stage teams to get from 0 to 1 or 1 to 2. And so like all of these things going in parallel like compounds growth. And
100%.
that doesn't mean that every single initiative is going to be perfect. That doesn't mean that a single program is going to unlock,
Mm,
groundbreaking activity overnight, but it's a game of chipping away.
yep.
And while you're chipping away at different vectors to grow the chain and grow the ecosystem and grow the economy around Monad, we, at least I, have a very high degree of confidence in the underlying tech that is highly differentiated. It is highly performant. It is decentralized, and it's where Ethereum is going. And so, like, looking at that holistically from a big picture perspective, it's like, all right,
Yeah. No, exactly. I mean, I think that, uh, even though, like, competition is obviously fierce, at the same time, it's also, like, in many ways in crypto, I think a lot of these new chains spin up out of, like, some research and kind of, like, barely struggle to get past the finish line and die out. And on the other end, I think that there are a lot of teams that just make inherent trade-offs that Monad hasn't made. I think that's why we're here. Obviously, right now, decentralization is not like the sexiest topic in the world, but I actually do think a lot of these like more cypherpunk ideals are coming back to crypto and matter even more in a world of AI. Where we get to like you're seeing all this news about Anthropic, for example, like fighting with the Pentagon. AI has now become this national security issue, and it already has always been this issue of national defense, right? U.S. with chip exports in China, all of that. And I think in this world, crypto is extremely important as almost this like defense vector of this private money, of this sovereign asset that people can own, especially if we're getting to a world of surveillance states across with AI. And then that's kind of what we're already getting to, right? Like this is what's happening. Maybe like the US it'll take longer, but I'm sure in many other countries around the world, like this tech is getting mobilized very quickly. And I think the reason why you have decentralization at the forefront is you first of all, more and more people are going to need their money on sovereign ledgers, and then you're going to need protection and the ability for, hey, this government can't just come in and be like, what's happening on this chain, let me seize these assets. And I think like more and more as we kind of evolve with AI, crypto becomes just as important with its cypherpunk ideals.
100%. It's like it's very clear that decentralization actually does matter
Yeah.
and is quite important. And maybe when you're talking to an institution, the selling point is not like decentralization for decentralization's sake, but
Yeah.
like, do you want to be able to trust the network itself, or do you want to trust a single entity or a single third party who has end to end control over the stack? Do you want to prioritize uptime? I think and it's certainly not me, but like, yes, the answer is yes, they do. Like they want
Yeah.
if we're gonna build on a blockchain and potentially have, billions of dollars in the system,
Mhm.
like you want the thing to remain live. You want it to be better than the old system. And so like certain properties have to be there for that to be true.
Right.
And otherwise, like, if you have a lot of like forked chains are just like one quite centralized
Mhm.
and two like ultimately don't really offer value
Right.
beyond like what the current system is able to
100%.
provide.
Yeah, I mean, again, like whenever you see these like these crazy announcements of like 10 million TPS, like obviously they're all just making extreme trade-offs, and it's okay. Like that is a totally valid venue to go into. And I think if today James Hunsaker is like, yeah, like screw physics, we're just gonna co-locate everything and centralize everything, like you can get there as well. Right, but I don't think that's the paradigm of the world that we're solving for, and it's not what we believe in as well.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident
Yeah.
that like James and the technology contributors behind the Monad network could have done that, in 6 months, had
Oh,
this
totally.
thing shipped out
Yep.
in like, mid 2023, made a
Yeah.
bunch of noise around it, but like that honestly is like not the point of Monad at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
And so that was never even a consideration.
100%.
And,
Yeah.
I think for people that have really been paying attention, like if you've been in the community for a while, if you've been building on
Mhm.
Monad for a while, like you can see time and again, there's
Yeah.
this commitment to not making these trade-offs, to not taking
For sure.
shortcuts.
Yeah.
And, like what more could you look for
For
if
sure.
you actually believe in the ethos of crypto, if you believe
Yeah.
this is going to play out in a way that has reverence for like the original ethos of what
Yeah.
crypto
For
was,
sure.
then like it's pretty clear to see like a lot of this stuff is noise,
Yeah.
and a lot of what we're seeing right now is just like kind of a
Yeah.
a maturation of
Yeah.
the
I mean, and again, it takes
Yep,
time,
we
right?
we
Like,
got
I
we
feel
got the
like
guests here.
sweet.
nice. Awesome. All right, let's bring in Bungie.
Hello, hello. GM, how's it going?
GM, G Monad, how are you guys doing?
How are you?
Fantastic. It's great to have you here. I know Bungie's been all over Twitter. We've had the incognito announcement. Your team has been shipping quite rapidly. So awesome to have you on the show today and excited to unpack this announcement. Probably would be ideal to start with a quick little intro.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. Quick intro. I'm Rishabh, one of the founders of Bungie and Socket. Um, just a very quick intro on Bungie as well. So we've been in the space for around like 3 years now, specifically working on just being like this one layer for to get any token you want, right? Like, so we basically have 30 chains, and you come in with any token anywhere, and you just get any token anywhere, right? Like, there's no concept of we basically blurring the lines between bridging and swapping, such that any token that is on chain is essentially accessible to you without really having to deal with things like gas or any kind of like like on chain complexities that kind of like come with you doing any transaction on chain. And now, as a part of that, like you mentioned, we rolled out Bungee Incognito, which is extension of like what we're doing already, where you could do that but everything was visible on chain, like for
Mm,
anyone to see. And with incognito, we basically bring in privacy, right? Like right where you are. So Bungie today is already used by like over 300,000 users on like a monthly basis. And we have our APIs which are plugged into the top wallets in the ecosystem, from MetaMask and Rabi, Rainbow, Zerion, Coinbase wallet, Kraken wallet, Gemini wallet. The list goes on and on. And with this, everyone, right, like our users, we start with the Bungie app. They all get like access to any token they need in like a completely private way, where like no one can really trace your on-chain activity. And very soon we'll basically make this available to on-chain APIs as well, like to our Bungie APIs as well, to make it accessible to like the broader ecosystem.
super cool. Super cool. Yeah, I mean, I would just say like I was playing around with it earlier this morning. As a user, I would like I'm 100% going to use incognito mode for every one of my swaps. It's really incredible what you guys built. Could you maybe just give like an easy explanation of how you guys achieved this, how incognito mode actually works under the hood?
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe like let me just start with like how we kind of like went about doing this, right? And then
Totally.
like the approach will make like a lot more sense. So what we so we like I think like right now, like it's also like a CT thing right now. Yeah, like everyone is talking about privacy being so
Yep.
important and everything like that. And what we did was literally just started hitting up our users. Hey, like, what do you guys think about privacy? What do you
Mm,
guys think about, like, would you do you want privacy? And every like the answer was a resounding yes. Like everyone is saying, oh yes, like it's so super important, everything. And then like we asked them, hey, like, but there's like some things that already exist. Have you used anything? And like most of them actually said no, right? Like, so they hadn't used anything ever in terms of uh, privacy, right? Like, so what we realized was it's just like so fucking hard to use, right? So what we really wanted to focus on because of that is literally usability, right? Like in the analogy that we kind of like use is when you introduce, like private browsing, right? Like there was like this, like before what we are now very familiar with, private browsing or incognito mode on like our chromes,
mhm,
right? Like it that everyone kind of like did this with tor, right? Like with where they had to kind of like go in and set up like this complicated thing and like think about routing and stuff, and it
mm,
fucked up everything from your internet speed to the website that you can access.
mm,
It was a completely different world, right? Like that's because it was not really made for the everyday users, right? Like it was
mm,
just made for privacy maximalists, right? Like, and not, let's say, a average joe or like people like myself, to be very honest, right? Like, so what like Safari actually, right, like came up with for the first time is this concept of private browsing within your browser, right? So you just like click like those three dots and you basically click that private mode, and that's it, right? Like now everything that you do is there's no history, right? Like, and which like there's like less amount of traffic tracking and everything like that. So it's not completely private, but it's private enough, like for everyday use. And that's what the thought process was behind it, right? Like behind Bungie Incognito as well, to bring Bungie right where the users are, within the Bungie app, within the wallets like MetaMask and Coinbase wallet and
Mhm.
like base app now and so on and so forth, through like like our ecosystem already, and do it in a way which is super easy, right? So you just like come on Bungie, you basically press a toggle, and that's
Yep.
about it, right? There's no depositing into these shielded pools or
Yeah.
whatever. And finally, it works for so many tokens, right? So it's like when we say like it's live on Monad, it's not that we're live on like one token, right? Like it's actually live on like majority of stable coins and the Monad token as well, for that matter, right? Like to give users the choice, like to basically opt into or get privacy where they need.
Where do you see like the future appetite for private transacting on blockchain versus public transacting on blockchain? I know, Zcash has been super hot for, many months now, probably over a year. There's been this huge interest in privacy, but I'm curious, like beyond the hype, how do you see it playing out um, from here? Like ultimately, where does privacy become super important? Where is it fine to be transacting in a more public manner?
Yeah, I think like there's going to be a huge spectrum, just like with everything, right? Like where a lot of like these day-to-day activities might not need like full privacy, but like some might. So how we kind of like see this, or how I kind of like see this playing out, is many users first of all will just not care, right? Like so like there's like this whole dystopian image of advertising as well, and like of Facebook and Google and whatnot, that they collect so much data and so on and so forth. But the reality is 80% of users just do not give a fuck, right? Like when they're kind of like transacting with this. And that might be the case with like these like users as well, like they come in and there's like completely okay that things are on chain, because they're just here to make money and whatnot, right? But for their certain set of transactions, it might become super important for them. So maybe like they're super sensitive around, I made this like money, but now I want to go to Binance, but I don't want Binance to maybe link my whole wallet to my identity, basically, right? Like so it's not that so that's like the mid, like that's like coming in, like people needing a bit more privacy, like than what they're used to, where they're okay with like most of the activities, but like some transactions they need, like somewhat like more privacy. And then there's like more institutional side of things, right? Like I think like which will start to come up, and which is what we are seeing with like we're yet to see how it works, but like like there's like chains coming up with like full stack privacy and everything like that. And that's yet to be seen. I think the interesting dynamic will also be what we're seeing is like, so for example, Starknet launched this like private BTC, right? Like so
Mm.
there's like this token level privacy that comes in into like an existing huge token like BTC. I think that might be very, very apt for a lot of institutions, like if they're able to kind of like adapt it. So yeah, I think like there's like a broad spectrum that we'll see. And just because we're starting out, everything is all over the place, and things will, like get more clearer where they lie in the spectrum as we kind of like go about things.
100%. Yeah, I mean, and like it's funny. Danny and I were just talking about privacy before you joined the stream as well. I think the case for institutions is obviously super clear, right? All these like billions of dollars of stable coins coming on chain, obviously, like both for regulatory reasons, like, but also practically privacy is top of mind for consumers. I would say like, I think the solution you guys make makes a lot of sense for like power swappers who are going in between chains. Not even for any reason more than just like peace of mind. I think a lot of people just don't want their wallets being tracked and just don't want like everyone to see, what's happening. You have like more and more tooling now with AI as well for essentially on-chain surveillance. But I guess like if you were to zoom out, one of the things we were talking about is okay, like in this world of AI, I think privacy becomes super important. We're seeing this from like a national defense level, but then also from like a day-to-day human perspective. What do you think the consumer case looks like, let's say like 5 years down the line, for example?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was thinking about it as well. Like there's like so many agents coming in, and there's like so many amazing agentic kind of like protocols and things like that coming up on Monad as well.
Yeah.
And as that happens, it actually, you don't just need privacy from like your peers, let's say, or people around you, but also from agents in some ways, right? And the other way around, right? Like agents also need privacy from others, right? Like think about it, right? Like right now I can literally go to a Claude and everything and like start searching or copying someone, like just I can just have a AI agent which is like up your ass all the time, tracking like or copying everything you want, like whatever action you take on Monad, I'm just like basically copying that, right? So it's like the most extreme case of like social copying on this social trading that's coming in. In terms of retail, I think like there's again, right, like there's like a bunch of different use cases. There's like transfers as a use case, and then there's like trading as a use case, and so on and so forth, right? I think where this will come up is like, as a user, I might not want to just like make any transfer that I make, right? Like so I, as a user, if I'm receiving my pay, right, like my pay, like, or as a company, if I'm like basically doing my payroll, I don't want anyone to see how much I earn, basically, right? Like out of the salary, right? Like so, and then like what I'm paying, how much am I paying for rent, how much am I paying for, let's say, this new Lambo that I finally got, or whatever have you, right? So I think this will kind of like be the case with payments, where any sensitive transactions, or like mostly all transactions, there'll be like this privacy embedded into it. While on the other hand, there's like this trading aspect, right? I think again, there's like a whole spectrum that's kind of like panning out right now, where there's like this whole social trading element, and wherever that comes in, I think like of course people are doing this to almost boast and have like more followers and everything like that, right? So that might not be the case. But on the other hand, there's like you already see with like these perpetual protocols where like people are just being if you like scroll through Twitter, you see, like, or X, you see basically these traders being like docs, right? Like, hey, like this guy
Yeah.
got liquidated for like $10 million and whatnot. You obviously don't really want that, right? So you will want to isolate your wallets, right? I think the interesting part there would be if people do it. So people might not swap and have like everything private, but what they might want is they just transfer to a new wallet, do all the swaps and all the trades and whatnot, and then like when they want to take out the profit, they transfer to another unlinked wallet, right? So we might see like this selective privacy kind of like come in, where once you're like linking it, withdrawing it, depositing it, it's like fully unlinked to your past wallet, but you can just do like all the activities like trading and whatnot, which could be like fully public, and you might not care about it.
Got an interesting question from the community in the chat. Shout out Mirth Mono, one of our power listeners here at Monad in the Morning. And Mirth Mono asks, um, basically says, I'm thinking out loud with cross chain improving every day. If you had to bet on it today, do you think users will even know what chain they're on in 5 years? Or will infra like Bungie make the whole concept of chains basically invisible to the end user?
That's a that's a very interesting question, and I have like um, a sort of like interesting take on it as well. I think from a user experience perspective, what you will not see is the boundaries between the chain, in terms of like interacting with them and like the friction between them. But what you will still care about is the properties of a chain, right? Like, and like properties could be like anything from decentralization to like the TPS, or whatever the throughput, like whatever have you, right? Like so, as a user, you will just see, hey, like I have my USD and I want to earn yield on it or trade into XYZ token, or whatever. But you will want to like the like again, right, like, and imagine like an institution doing this. They will not want to expose their users to something that's not as decentralized, right? Like they want to make sure that the ledger is super decentralized, the ledger can handle the throughput. Like if Robinhood is building, like it has to be that level of throughput, right? Like, and that's where I think like chains like Monad, for example, come in, right? Like where the solid infra guarantees that they essentially provide has to be institution level, has to be like mass adoption level, basically, right? Like, and that's what the users will care about.
Yeah, and maybe this kind of also comes from one quick question from our community from Saw that I'll paraphrase a little bit. They're asking how does it incognito mode improve the user experience compared to other privacy tools? And I guess for other people, like the privacy tools we have in our head, probably the first one to start are your like classic mixers, like a Tornado Cache. And as you mentioned here, like this UX is, I've never honestly really even seen anything like it. You flip a toggle and things are private. What does that mean for users? Like what should they know? Like why, like if you could convey a message to your average retail users, what's happening under the hood in a easy to understand way? Why should they feel kind of comfortable that this is truly private?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me like just quickly contrast the two approaches, right? Like, so you
Yep.
mentioned the first thing that comes to mind right now is the mixer based approaches, right? Like, and after Tornado, I think like the biggest one is Railgun, of course, there, right? Like, and I love them. I love the tech. They've like done so much for the space, especially since Tornado. But using them is a nightmare, right? Like, and I can say like, like even 90% people listening to this, I can be fairly confident that they haven't like tried anything like Railgun, given how difficult it is. You need a completely new wallet, you need a completely new seed phrase, or
Yep.
store that like new seed phrase. You need to then like deposit into that token, and then you need to start that shielding process, which takes an hour, and then you need to wait for whatever time you want based on the privacy you want, and then you can finally like unshield that, right? Like it's a long process, right? Like in compared to that, there's like just one click, and that's about it, right? Like you don't need to do anything. And what we do under the hood is, you can think of it as like sex level, like centralized exchange level guarantees, right? Like where we're using these centralized exchanges under the hood. We're using just like we use like multiple providers under the hood with like bridging side of things. We basically partnered with Houdini in this case to basically route the transactions via like these different centralized exchanges out there, so that no
Very
one can
cool.
really know
Makes
like
sense.
what kind of like happens on chain. So there's no on chain traceability for anything like
Mhm.
this.
And does that change the fees that users then have to pay given the extra routing going through centralized exchanges?
Not at all. In fact,
Oh, wow.
like the fee that they pay is exactly what like they would pay when they're kind
Yeah,
of like going through these
super impressive.
exchanges. Yeah, so there's like no additional fee that we charge on top. It's all like what you would typically pay. So yeah, we want to basically just minimize, as make it as frictionless as possible. And this is like something I wrote about a bit earlier, is that our goal is actually for people to try privacy for the first time on chain, like because we know that 90% of the people have just not, right? So I would like really love if everyone like just went on to bungee.exchange and just like give it a shot.
One parallel that people can probably easily understand, and it's certainly not apples to apples with incognito mode, but I'll toss it out in case it is helpful. I think it's interesting. Venmo, obviously not a blockchain based product, but widely used for peer to peer payments. They When you sign up on Venmo and you start transacting, say I send Evan $5, and um, the transaction is kind of public in a sense, at least on the Venmo app. You have the ability to see what your friends are doing. I think you do that by like connecting your Meta accounts. And there's also this option to just turn on like the lock mode or the privacy mode effectively, so that your transactions are not shared publicly amongst all your Meta contacts and friends that are also using Venmo. And from a UX perspective, I think there's a similar parallel here, and also a similar use case where you may just not want to air out exactly what you're doing
Mhm.
entirely publicly, with, financial transactions and information. And so like you have that kind of one stop, really quick click, you go into incognito mode and you're good to go from there. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I love that analogy, man. Like I think like it's a very, very apt one. Um, it just gives you, like it's just like one lock click away basically, right? Like you just like press that button and that's about it, right? Like so it's completely up to you if like what you want to keep private and what you want to keep public, right? Like and that's what it is, and that's like the best optionality, bits best of both worlds.
Beautiful. Love it. I know we're coming up on time here, but for a final question before we cut to a brief intermission, I'm curious, why Monad ultimately? I believe Bungie's live across 20 plus chains, which is awesome. There's clearly an opportunity cost for spending development time to go integrate a new chain. And there's quite a lot of chains out there. So why, build out the support for Monad? Why include incognito mode on Monad?
Yeah, there's a bunch of different like things that we love Monad for, of course, right? Like there's obviously the product aspect. So the product aspect being like the throughput and the kind of like the kind of like ease, right? Like with like the three with the development experience that comes with it. It you just have to build it, right? Like but I think like there's like a lot of people who already know a lot about the product, so I won't get like super deep into it. But what is like super um, what we love really is like the community, like around Monad, right? Like so we basically wanted to make sure, like I said, right, like we're basically building this to almost like have users try privacy for the first time, right? And given the amount of love that people have for Monad, the kind of like passion that people have for Monad, we basically wanted to kind of like bring this for Monad users. And I know like how much everyone like just tries out every ecosystem application out there, right? And that's where we kind of like came in. We wanted like people to come in and try privacy with the speed of Monad and the and the amazing user experience on Monad, and that's why we came here.
Awesome. Couldn't agree more, and super excited. I think this is a great way, to your point, for people to try privacy for the first time, hopefully on their favorite chain, but also live across many other ecosystems as well. And congrats on that launch. Really excited to see what's in store for the rest of 2026. And of course, appreciate you joining us today on Mono in the Morning.
Thank you so much for having me, and yeah, really, really, really fun conversation.
Amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Let's run it back soon. For the time being, we will cut to a brief intermission and we will be back with Wyatt from Castle Island Ventures to talk about another exciting thing happening on Monad, the Nitro program. Thanks again to the Bungie team, both on the product side and yourself, for joining us today. Wish you well.
See you soon.
Thank you so much. See you.
On that in 5 years?
It's a tough question.
It really depends on
where do you see Monad in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, where is Monad in 5 years?
It's a tough question.
it really depends on where they want to go. I mean, we're so early in the space that the Monad team is a killer team. They could take it wherever they want to take it.
From a stablecoin point of view, I think the way we're going is like all businesses will adopt stablecoins as kind of like, medium of exchange, right? I think Monad continues to scale. Like that's sort of like what a success state looks like. It just literally becomes the kind of on-chain platform powering these regulated finance at scale.
And I think if the Monad team continues to deliver and facilitate these relationships like they have with our team and other stablecoins in the space as well, I don't see why they can't be a top competitor in terms of facilitating payments and facilitating yield.
It takes time to attract builders. It takes time to get the app that creates revenue for you and puts you, at a big league. I feel like the positioning is great. We're seeing Ethereum try to scale, so I'm expecting Monad to fill in that spot of a fast, reliable, decentralized EVM chain.
All right, we're back. Hello. I know the chat has really been enjoying our upgraded studio. This is we hacked this together. We're still working on finishing out the facelift. Shout out Jessup, who's behind the scenes, who's put in a ton of thought and also time and also physical labor to upgrade the
Breaking his
studio.
back out there for us.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Evan appreciates it.
Yeah.
I'm sure the chat appreciates it as well.
Yeah.
Next week is going to be a big reveal, and very much so excited for it. But for now, we have something very exciting as well. We're going to talk Nitro with Wyatt, one of the mentors. Wyatt is from Castle Island VC. Wyatt posted an awesome thread on Nitro on Twitter pretty recently. If you haven't seen it already, you should definitely go check it out. Do we have Wyatt in the building, in the chat, in the call? Let's bring him on if we do.
We do not.
And we do not. Nice.
He's not coming in the room.
Let me confirm.
No, he's calling in now.
Oh, nice.
Hey.
Wyatt, how's it going?
Yeah, good. Can you guys hear me all right?
We can hear you. We can see you. We can also see your nice tag at the bottom, still labeled Bungie up fixed.
Yeah.
With a nice little emote there to boot. Welcome to Monad in the Morning. Thanks for coming on. I know we had some logistical moving pieces this week as we upgrade the studio, but appreciate you coming on nonetheless. Looking fantastic. You got a great setup there, and we appreciate you making do.
Yeah, thank you, gentlemen, for having me on. Excited to do it. I feel honored to be alongside some of the folks you've had in the past.
Oh, the honor is ours for sure, and definitely pumped to talk about Nitro. Probably a good place to start. I don't think we need to give much of an overview for the Nitro program itself. We've really been hammering that across Twitter, but would be great to hear your perspective, kind of the story, if you will, of how you got involved, what your role is going to be, and then also just how you think about the Nitro program in general.
Yeah, definitely. And the first thing I'll say, it's been really fun over the last couple of weeks to see the reaction, because it's something that I get asked about on a daily basis by founders, by people who I've crossed paths in the past, who are like, "Oh, I see you're involved with Nitro. Let's chat about it. I want to be involved with the program." So the backstory here, we've been pleased to work alongside you guys and the broader Monad team from the Castle Island lens for multiple years now. And always had a great appreciation for the early demo days and presentations that would go on of projects building in and around the ecosystem. And then got to know Perrine when he joined the organization, as well as others who were involved with these initiatives. And I think the idea of Nitro seemed to come together over a period of months, was my understanding at least. And what I really respected was that Perrine and the rest of the team were constantly reaching out to us, to other people who were investing in the ecosystem, and saying, how would you build this from the ground up, versus the alternative being like, okay, we've seen this model be done at a certain accelerator, let's just redo the same thing. It was very much, how can we make this a great experience in ways that have been done and haven't been done in the past. So I've sort of been lucky enough to be involved and I think be a sounding board that way since early on. And in a funny way, I think in this age where all of a sudden it's easier to ship products than ever before, you can do so. People keep talking about there's going to be a one-person team that builds a $100 million company pretty soon. I think it just becomes all the more appealing of an offering, because you get this instant access to distribution, to validation with potential partners. So it's been incredible seeing it come together. And if I were to put myself in the founder's seat, I think it's an awesome opportunity for anyone.
Yeah, and maybe touching on that point, it's interesting. It feels like the opportunity is maybe larger than ever for people to just ship things and build. At the same time, in crypto at least, we've seen funding generally down right now. I think I saw some stat of like this Q1 2026 probably being the lowest amount of seed rounds funded in the last couple of years. How are you guys as a capital allocator thinking about deploying in these environments? What does it mean for founders, and like how should founders position then given the nature of market conditions?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that you're going to want to be opportunistic about where you can go and find sources of capital. So I think something like Nitro is a great opportunity in that regard. You also have to think about when we're in more of, call it, a capital scarce environment. Maybe you can raise a seed round, but who's going to do the Series A? Who's going to do the Series B? Assuming you're building that sort of business. Or the alternative is maybe you go build something that is going to make revenue and hopefully cash flow very early on. And that's a very different sort of business model. And we've seen that with some of these trading businesses. Something like a Hyperliquid or some adjacent models there like didn't really go through the traditional venture capital route. So I would encourage people to try that overall. Um, I think for us, venture capital is going to be focused more on the sorts of endeavors that take a lot of capital. So to build out a full software solution that faces enterprise businesses, for example, that can take a lot of resources to build, and you'll need a large sales team. But I think these consumer products where there can be more of a virality, in a way, you could argue don't need as much of the capital base, I think. And so there's more of a chance to build those products quickly. And then you want to orient towards distribution. So maybe you go raise capital, but you'd almost want to raise capital with a focus towards how is that going to get me access to a subset of users and access to revenue versus let's go raise $2 million because it's what most companies do. So I think the trajectory will change a lot. I think historically, you had to go raise money to build things because it was more expensive to actually ship. And because that's changing, there are a lot of ideas that can be built without necessarily having to raise a lot of capital, which is exciting because it makes things worth doing that weren't potentially worth doing. And I think that could lead to a lot of, in particular, innovation on the consumer side. So I think we'll see more trading applications. I think we'll see more people trying to build easy ways to hold crypto assets, especially look at things like real world assets. I'm waiting for a great wealth management app that starts to disintermediate traditional ones where you can just hold these yield bearing instruments without paying wealth management fees. So I think there's a ton that's going to be exciting. I think it's a better time than ever to build something, candidly.
Speaking of that last point, I'm certainly not an expert here, but I think Axel is doing something along those lines, and they're building literally right behind me, probably 50 feet behind us in the studio here, and they've been making a lot of content and really talking to users and kind of scaling up that initial base. So excited to see a lot of this stuff like coming to fruition. It's been quite interesting. We were talking earlier about a lot of the recent hackathons that Monad Foundation has hosted or been involved with, and to your point, Wyatt, like these experimentation cycles have just gotten so rapid. Like you can come into a single day hackathon or a weekend hackathon and like have a 2-man team that actually ships an MVP end to end with like a nice front end. And it's like, this is pretty crazy. Like you couldn't do this before. And so I wouldn't be surprised if we actually do start to see some of these viral apps pop up that are hacked together in a short period of time, very little capital. Like you actually, as a independent developer, have the ability to kind of bootstrap an MVP yourself and not even necessarily go out and even hire like a single engineer or have, much in your bank account in order to be able to try something. And I think that's like one of the most awesome opportunities. Now for Nitro, it's kind of the stage after that. So like you got to have like the MVP, you got to have like an initial kind of user base, and now you're looking to grow and scale that beyond stage one. And one of the interesting things that we've gotten a lot of questions about, and I'm curious for your take as well, is like, okay, Monad is basically putting on this program, but it's not specific to builders on Monad. We've seen a lot of applications from builders in the Solana ecosystem and people building on Base and other chains as well. And I'm curious, how you think about that kind of unique dynamic of the Nitro program.
I think it's great to be open. Like one of the things that I like about your guys' ethos is it's always been grow the pie versus like take share from someone else. I think we're all trying to orient towards a bigger on-chain economy and environment. So I love that ethos. The other thing I'd say is when it comes to trying to bring partners in from all facets of the ecosystem, that helps everyone who's involved. And to your point about the hackathons, I do think it's easier to build anything than it's ever been from behind your screen. But now that there are going to be more projects, and now that there are at the same time, there's more fraud than there's ever been. I see impersonators all the time on Telegram, for example. Building this trust is really important. So I think it's great to foster a wider ecosystem than a narrow one where we're saying like, okay, well, we've 10 Monad projects and those 10 need to beat out the 10 projects elsewhere. It's great to take this attitude of we're going to get access to everyone in the ecosystem. That's how we help the builders the most. And then at the same time, help establish trust, because at a certain point, you need these partnerships. So for someone like Axel, if you're in the wealth management space, we talk about the tokenization of everything. Apollo's tokenizing assets. You need to build up trust so that you can be partners with someone like that. Eventually, that becomes a key part of the success, as opposed to just coding together in short order the best front end app.
100%. Yeah. I mean, the trust is very, very key. And, from day one for Monad as a protocol, but also for like the ecosystem, there's been this really extreme prioritization of transparency, whether on the protocol side itself, it's like, okay, the entire stack was open sourced at or before mainnet. I think some components were open sourced a couple months before mainnet, which is pretty cool and pretty unique for Monad as well. And then you have even, disclosures around market makers, really skewing towards the extreme side of transparency around the mainnet launch. And that is
that was great.
definitely the theme. And then even back to like, okay, what's the founding story for Monad? You have two relatively high profile traders coming from, leading the quant teams at Jump Trading. Now, after kind of exploring Solana DeFi for a couple of years, starting this new thing, Monad. These are, one, very like knowledgeable subject matter experts, but two, like people who commit to things for the long term. And, having worked at Jump, on pretty similar projects for the better part of 10 years, there's, no reason to expect any different for Monad, especially when that is the thing that's said over and over again. Like, our goal is not to see Monad, still around in just 1 or 2 years, but 5, 10, 20 years. And so, hopefully the fact that we continue to beat the drum around transparency and building in public and building trust is something that people continue to latch on to. That's my hope, but curious if you have a take on that as well, Wyatt.
I completely agree. I think in the early days of the crypto industry, people really started to lean into this if you know ethos, and there wasn't as much of a transparency. And people wanted to get rid of trust assumptions and relying on trust assumptions, which I'm aligned with. I think it's great if we can build structures that do that. But that doesn't mean that you want to get rid of trust as an ethos. Like ideally, you're working with and around people that you have this trust relationship with. And I think at the same time, the market's spoken. We've seen a lot of the tokens that are affiliated with anonymous teams or people that other people don't know. They haven't performed well. They haven't lasted, where the market wants to see, okay, I know who the people are behind this. They're talking about what they're doing. They're open about what they're doing. And I can, to some degree, have a level of confidence that it'll be around in a few years, like you said. So I think that is the way that things are going and the way that they should be going. And it's what I would want personally. So excited for that era and happy you guys have done that throughout.
Yeah, appreciate that, Wyatt. And I guess like touching on one thing you mentioned earlier, which is almost this spectrum of opportunity for builders right now, where if you're not so kind of capital constrained, you can be an individual shipping a consumer app and maybe just scaling that to revenue really quickly. We've seen kind of like prediction markets. I think like HIP3 and Hyperliquid's a great example of that. Like just permissionlessly go and deploy a perp, right? On the other end, part of the scaling of crypto now is maybe the next 100x opportunity is we're already at this institutional scale, and then it's just bringing that even further into the masses. I guess for you, what are the things that you guys are most excited to see? Obviously, from Castle Island Venture, it's probably a little bit more like what are the use cases that require the
Yeah.
capital. But even from like a personal, like you're just in crypto and interested in tech, what do you hope that that indie dev in their garage is tinkering on? What is like the spectrum of opportunities you hope people are going to come in and build?
Yeah, I think that the movement of money on chain, so you're seeing stablecoin accounts grow globally, and there's still so many people out there who don't have access to effective financial instruments or
Yep.
opportunities to save their money to try and earn appreciation over time. Uh, and that's an incredibly exciting thing. So tokenizing these assets allows for access to that. I think the crypto experience can still get way better. An example, I think I included this in the tweet. I've been waiting for years for someone to build something like an on-chain notary. And that's because I've fat fingered an address once or twice where you send money to an empty wallet and it's gone. There's no chargebacks in crypto. And I don't know if there should be chargebacks, but I'd almost like if you had some sort of intermediary wallet where you could send an amount and sort of specify, okay, I want this to end up at this wallet, but they're going to flag to say something like, hey, this might not be the wallet you meant to send money to. And I think you would prevent millions and millions of dollars of lost crypto per year. And people talk about trying to improve the user experience. I think we went through a deep infrastructure cycle trying to do that. But I do think there's still almost like surface level improvements like that would really move the industry forward. Sending money to the wrong wallet address, like I said, is still a problem. I think trying to refund transactions is a problem. So again, maybe that's chargebacks, maybe it's some other system where you send a wrong stablecoin transaction, they can send it back to you. Wallet authentication is getting better, but I think there's still good room for interoperability with other apps and built-in wallets, so it should expand. So I'm really excited about that. I'm a crypto user every day, as you probably imagine. I think there are things that are simple like that'll help us a lot.
One of the things that you I think talked a good amount about in your thread was like the importance of distribution now more than ever. And historically in crypto, distribution has been this kind of weird and like very unique crypto specific strategy where you just get like anyone and everyone to basically like kind of LARP as a user because they're looking for rewards or they're looking to, farm something or be early to a new protocol. And now, distribution looks very different where everyone wants to see real retention, real revenue, real user growth in the form of like actually solving some sort of problem for users and having people come to your app or your product or your experience because it improves their life, not because they think that, they're going to make life-changing wealth by like coming to the app every day and using it. And so like with this kind of shift that's playing out in front of us, how do you see the industry kind of changing the precedent for distribution? And what is this going to look like in 2026 and beyond?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think historically crypto organizations have mostly interfaced with their users on Twitter and Discord and Telegram. And that goes back to a bit of that, like, if you know ethos. It's almost like there was a pride in the fact that, okay, we're communicating with people who are on Discord and those are the people we want to have. And I think it's going to go more mainstream. I think that's what's going to take for scale. And I think that's just the best way of creating something and reaching an audience of people who actually want to use a product versus ones that want this wealth effect because they think they're in some niche corner of the internet. And my favorite example is probably XRP. Like, you know, if I talk to my non-crypto friends, they've all heard of XRP, and not a lot of them have heard of Hyperliquid or Pump Fund or whatever it is.
Mm.
And that's because they have access on Instagram and TikTok. And I'm not here to say that XRP is the product of the future or anything like that, but I do think that sort of movement where they have this mainstream media type presence, which I think you're going to start to see more with stablecoin powered payments apps. I think as we have things like Axel, like you mentioned, which are designed more to, frankly, make users money over time and not exploit users over the long term, that they stand to do well on those channels and will expand to those channels, and that's what's going to be necessary.
Yeah, it's honestly kind of crazy to think about like the difference between historically like what the you know, like mindset, I guess, if you will, of a like crypto user versus a software user on a like web 2 app, for example. And like I think about the things that matter to me on a web 2 app. Probably a decent example is Riverside, which we used to use a
Yeah, I
lot
use
for.
Riverside too for our podcast.
Nice. Yeah, yeah. So like it's 2 years ago when we started the Pipeline podcast, it was like the primary software that we used. We were basically doing remote only episodes, very similar to what we're running today here. And Riverside as a software was pretty early at the time, and it was pretty rough. And so for me as like a user, I needed something that allowed me to quickly spin up a remote podcast, be able to get a quality recording and edit it myself. And there weren't too many options out there at the time. And Riverside was really one of the best, but it was still very far from perfect. And so it was this weird kind of situation where it probably wasn't really ready for like global scale, but there was this target persona, aka me,
Yeah.
working at Monad Foundation pretty early days, didn't have a full media team. I didn't have a ton of media experience, especially on the like production side of things. So Riverside was like a key tool for me to use, but it was frustrating because I would run into a lot of issues and like it was hard to figure out, and the UX and UI was like constantly changing. But what I really grew to appreciate was like, one, I kind of have to be here because this is the best thing that I know to solve the problem that I have. And
Right.
then two, I could get in touch with their support team and they would help me understand what I was doing wrong, or you know, how to make the best usage of their features. And so like if I was just coming in as a speculator, for example, like hoping Riverside was going to launch a token, then I probably wouldn't care to provide feedback to their support team or ask questions about the pain I was feeling as a user. And therefore, like Riverside doesn't really benefit from me as a user if I'm not the person that they're trying to attract to the platform. And so
Right.
I say all this because I would assume that this is what we're going to see in crypto throughout this year and beyond. It's people coming in because of the ease of use or the access to payments and financial products. And maybe these things are not yet perfect, but if you live in a region where you don't have access to the US dollar or you don't have access to the banking system, then crypto apps are going to be, in all likelihood, your best bet. And if that is you as a user, you know, maybe you actually do have a chance to make some good money because it is crypto and there's inherent financialization and everything. But maybe you also have a chance to really benefit from these applications and see them grow and mature and improve with time. So I think, you know, that's kind of the consolidation of like two extremes. One extreme is like, I'm just effectively farming this thing and I don't care about the product. And then the other hand is like, I will do this for free, or I will even like pay to use this service. And then we kind of get to a really happy middle ground where the users in crypto are benefiting from the thing that they're using, but then the product is benefiting as well in getting actual user feedback, and then there's inherent financialization incentives and all these things. And maybe that feels a little bit painful in the short term because you're not likely to make $1 million by being one of the first 100 users on a new app, but it does stand the chance to improve your life and improve the industry overall.
Yeah, and I think there will be more people who have those same needs like you did with the podcast early on in the context of crypto, where it's like, okay, now there's such a need that there's going to be a functional improvement in what it is. And there's just a lendiness or continual need to the things that started crypto, which is Bitcoin is a proven store value asset. There's volatility, but far less than a lot of currencies and other asset classes globally. People are going to want to own it. We got cheaper blockchains because it was too expensive to send Bitcoin around. That was kind of like one moment early on. Then we started to get better wallets. I remember when I used Privy for the first time after managing wallet flows for a long time. That was sort of an aha moment. I remember when bridging started to get so much better, when you used to clench your fist when you had to use some of the early bridges because you didn't know if your money was going to come through on the other side. And each time, to your point, Danny, that happened after the need from users got big enough that it was like, okay, this problem makes a lot of sense to solve now. And I think that we're going to keep breaching those next levels where it's like, okay, now it's worth solving whatever this next problem is. The Monad airdrop experience, for example, was the best airdrop experience I've had. And it was sort of like, okay, airdrops at this maturity. We know there are a lot of people who are in the market for this airdrop. We want to create a great opportunity, which is going to resonate with people. And I think that will continue to happen at each of these mini sub verticals in the industry, which you piece it together and it starts to make a very cohesive experience. And we're getting there. Like when we talk to corporate organizations that want to implement stablecoins, for example, they'll do this assessment. They're like, okay, who should we use for our wallet, and who should we use for our KYC, and who should we use for our orchestration moving money around, and which money market fund that's tokenized should we use? And those are each getting incrementally better, and then you hopefully stitch them together in something that creates a great user experience.
Yeah, and we've talked about throughout this, user experience, payments, stable coins, infrastructure improvements, generally being like, here are the Lindy things that have continued to get better throughout crypto. At the same time, I think crypto has always been most powerful as a force for outside acceleration. I don't think we can forget that Bitcoin came out as a response to the banking crisis in 2008.
Right.
And obviously now the biggest thing that our civilization faces is really just AI, right? It's become this national security issue. And at the same time, every spare dollar of liquidity is going to AI capex, and unfortunately not my altcoins right now. But I guess for you guys, setting aside some of the more Lindy aspects of crypto, what are maybe the areas where you see crypto overlapping with these more frontier markets, or even AI in general, as we're seeing outside capital from the rest of the world going into?
Yeah, I think it's really important to have money wallet accounts, essentially crypto-based money wallet accounts. And part of the reason for that is that as agentic commerce expands, I think there's a lot of noise in that conversation, but I do fully buy into the fact that ultimately you will want to give something autonomous the ability to go and spend $10 or $20, whether that's to perform a query question or search and to get behind paywalls, because you guys probably know a lot of the time the output of a question that you might ask ChatGPT is not very good, mostly because it can't get behind paywalls. That's a clear need. I think another example would be if you want to shop for something. We're not going to shop for things on Amazon by typing in what we want. We're going to ask an agent to go and make a purchase for us. And you want that to run as seamlessly as possible. And I think it's partly hits on the Citrini research recently, but the best way to do that is going to be wallets, is going to be cheap, reliable blockchains, and it's going to be through crypto assets. So that's incredibly exciting. I think functionally, we're also seeing the ways that crypto technology is disrupting the way that financial markets have worked for a long time. And the specific example I'd give there is it's for a long time been the norm that if you pay for foreign exchange costs or moving currency across borders is probably at least 25 bips or a 0.25%. It could be 50, it could be 0.5%, could be more for a retail product. And crypto's bring the cost of that down. And the way that happens is the money just moves faster than it ever has. And if you borrow money on a short term, which you could do with like an Aave or a Morpho, and extend it as a credit line to anyone who's moving money cross borders, that whatever it is, 4 hours, 10 hours of line of credit that you need to perform the transaction before you get the other currency, that's a lot cheaper than that 0.5% you would pay. So you see things that are really cool happening like that in real time. That's probably one of the biggest design spaces we're seeing right now is companies that are lending for these fintech use cases to make moving money around the world cheaper. So really excited for how those sectors are being disrupted.
Love it. I know we're keeping you overtime here, Wyatt, and I know you've got a busy schedule today. Appreciate you coming on. I'll leave it open in case you want to drop any final thoughts on Nitro, any recommendations for builders to apply, who should apply, when should they apply, anything. I'll leave it pretty open for you.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I encourage pretty much anyone working on something they're excited about to at least consider applying, especially if you're at the early stage and you're sort of starting to build out a product which you think has momentum. It's a great community here. Feel free to reach out to me with questions. I'm always open to chat. And thanks for having me on.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on, Wyatt. It's our pleasure.
Yeah, thanks guys. Have a good one.
See you very soon. Have a
You
good
too.
one.
Bye.
Awesome. Huge shout out to Wyatt for joining us today on our very much so hacked together episode. We'll do spins next week. I think we asked 1 or 2 questions from the chat. I know we, as always, we owe Mirth Mono a spin.
Yeah, I think From Saw got one in there as well.
Oh yeah, From Saw. Yep. Appreciate everyone who's joined us today. This was kind of a maybe we could call it a bridge episode of Monad in the Morning. We're bridging season 1 to season 2 next week. Very exciting. We'll be back with a jam-packed lineup of guests. We'll have prizes, giveaways, questions, and more in the brand new, fully renovated Monad in the Morning studio. We will catch you next week, Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern. This is the final episode of season 1 and pumped to level up in season 2. Appreciate everyone who is here today, as well as our guests, Wyatt and Bungie.